Okay, so you know how sometimes you read a news story out of LA and it just hits you with that like weird sense of deja vu? Like you've seen this movie before, even if you haven't.
Yeah, I know what you mean. Like, it's like certain themes just keep echoing through the city's history, especially like when it comes to the darker side of Hollywood, right? All the glitz and glamour just kind of masks this whole tangled mess underneath.
Exactly. And that's exactly where our source material for today drops us right in the thick of it.
Hmm.
These fascinating excerpts from Grist for the Mill,
Right.
and it throws us right into this very uh, modern LA crime, the murder of a woman named Lizzie Short
Okay.
at a Hollywood producer's Malibu beach house after a weekend party.
Sounds familiar.
Seems like your standard headline fodder,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. Initially, you could say that I guess you got all the classic ingredients, young woman, powerful figure party scene.
Right.
Sadly, it's not exactly an uncommon story. But there's something more here. It's the way this case reaches back into Hollywood's past that really grabs you.
Because almost from the start, there's this unsettling connection that emerges to a cold case from the 1940s, the murder of an actress named Laura Mill.
Yeah, and it's more than just some vague similarity. There are all these strange coincidences that make you wonder if, like, the past is somehow bleeding into the present.
So that's the puzzle we're diving into today, isn't it? Tracing those connections, understanding how the death of Lizzie Short in the present might be linked to this long-ago tragedy of Laura Mill.
Exactly.
We got to figure out who these people are, how their lives are intertwined, and the motivations that seem to stretch across, like, decades.
They give us this framework, events, characters, potential links that we can really dig into.
Okay.
So what we want to do is pull out those key pieces of information, try to understand how those two deaths are connected and who's caught in the middle.
Okay, let's start then by setting the scene in the present day.
Right.
We have detectives Velma Dime and Joe Grist investigating the murder of Lizzie Short, and the location is Seymour Kratz's beachfront home in Malibu.
Oh, Kratz.
Yeah.
A Hollywood producer, operating with that level of assumed influence.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
The setting itself almost becomes a character in this type of story.
Yeah.
Malibu beachfront, property, Hollywood producer.
Right.
Images of wealth, privilege, this detachment from the everyday realities that most people face.
Right.
It all comes to mind immediately.
The initial details are stark. A woman somewhere between 25 and 30 found dead on Kratz's beach after one of his weekend gatherings.
And the Kratz's initial reaction is a classic, denial.
Oh, yeah.
Lizzie Short was a client, an actress who was at the party, but beyond that, we know nothing.
Of course.
A stance that rarely holds up under scrutiny.
Right. And here's a really unsettling detail.
Mm-hmm.
Lizzie Short had a couple of minor roles in a doctor series.
Okay.
And in one of them, she played a dead body.
Oh, wow.
Talk about irony.
It's a detail that adds this layer of dark irony to the narrative, almost a sense of foreboding. Speaks to the precarious nature of her position within the Hollywood system. Almost suggests a feeling of being disposable.
The name Arnie Bernardo comes up early on, and there's a hint that his connection to Kratz might suggest a dangerous environment.
Right.
He's described as a former gangster who's now a production company chairman.
Interesting.
It's quite a transformation, or maybe just a change of scenery for the same underlying power dynamics.
It does highlight the fluid and sometimes murky nature of power in Hollywood, where, influence can come from different, not always legitimate sources.
Right.
Bernardo's presence immediately injects this a sense of potential threat and complexity that the detectives will have to navigate.
And then we have a psychiatrist at Kratz's party, a Dr. Idaho. Now that name, as you might suspect, will become pretty important as we go along.
Yeah, even at this early stage, bringing a psychiatrist into a murder investigation at a Hollywood gathering hints at deeper psychological currents at play, raises questions about his involvement, maybe indirectly in the events.
Now the narrative shifts us back in time through a flashback. We're at the same Malibu property, but it's the 1940s, and the owner is a director named Roman Lenny Favaro.
Ah, this is where we first meet Laura Mill.
Right.
This juxtaposition of past and present at the same location is a powerful narrative technique. It suggests a potential link between the two eras, implying that the property itself might hold some kind of imprint of past events.
We're shown a wild party at Favaro's beach house, lots of drinking, described as a lascivious behavior.
Mm-hmm. The classic image of old Hollywood excess.
Right in the middle of all this, a heated argument breaks out between Favaro and Laura Mill.
And the specifics of this argument are pretty revealing.
Yeah.
It centers around a promised acting role that never happened. And maybe even more importantly, Laura Mill's child, who the narrative strongly implies is Favaro's.
Right.
This introduces themes of exploitation, broken promises, the personal costs of Hollywood ambition.
Favaro just dismisses Mill's concerns about providing for her child, even makes a crude remark about her past work.
It's a pretty uncomfortable moment that shows the power imbalance between a director and a struggling actress in that era.
Yeah.
Favaro's words reveal a complete lack of empathy and a sense of entitlement.
Then it turns physical. Favaro grabs Mill, she breaks free and runs towards the beach half naked trying to escape.
And Favaro, in a drunken rage, grabs a letter opener and chases after her.
The letter opener becomes a pretty significant object here.
Oh yeah, it starts as this ordinary thing on a desk and then transforms into a deadly weapon in a moment of uncontrolled anger.
Right.
The chase onto the dark beach creates this sense of impending tragedy.
And tragically, they collide in the darkness. Favaro falls on top of Laura Mill, and the letter opener plunges into her neck.
It's described as an accident, but it's an accident caused by his violent actions.
Right.
It raises questions about intent versus consequence.
In a panic, Favaro throws the letter opener into the Pacific Ocean, trying to cover up what happened. Now we're back in the present day, and Detective Dime is looking at the crime scene photos of Lizzie Short.
Okay.
And she starts to put things together, make a connection to the past.
Dime's intuition is key here.
Mm.
She's picking up on the echoes of the past, the similarities that others might miss. It suggests she's got a good eye for detail and maybe a deeper understanding of these patterns of violence.
She notices a similarity between the wound on Lizzie Short's neck and Laura Mill's murder.
Right.
Plus, they were both found on the same stretch of beach. It's just a hunch, but it really resonates with her.
The location and the type of wound are strong visual links between the two crimes. It really suggests that history might be repeating itself, or at least leaving very similar marks.
Right.
It's hard to ignore.
Grist is more skeptical at first. He dismisses it a bit, saying that crime scenes often have similar elements.
But Grist represents a more pragmatic, by-the-book approach to investigation.
Yeah.
But he is willing to look into the Laura Mill case, so he's open to possibilities,
Yeah.
even if he's not convinced right away.
We also get a glimpse into Dime's personal life, her boyfriend Bobby Bloom,
Okay.
and his upcoming gallery opening. This little detail will actually become important later on.
It's those small details that bring the characters to life and give them depth.
Right.
And it subtly hints that clues might be found in unexpected places like the art world.
Now we go back to the past again, this time meeting Higgins Idaho, the grandfather, through a flashback with Favaro. And this scene reveals a much more complex web of relationships than we first thought.
Right. The introduction of Higgins Idaho adds another layer to the historical context. We see him as an artist commissioned by Favaro, which shows the connections between different creative circles in old Hollywood.
So Favaro asks Idaho to paint Laura Mill, but then later he wants the face changed to a more popular star.
Wow.
It's another example of how fame was so disposable back then.
Yeah, trying to erase Laura Mill from the portrait and replace her with someone more relevant says a lot about Favaro's character. He sees people as commodities.
Yay.
He's dehumanizing Mill and using his power to control her image.
Okay, but here's where things get really interesting. While Idaho is working on the painting, Favaro slips a note to Idaho's wife,
Oh.
arranging a meeting at the beach house. Sounds like an affair to me.
This adds a whole new level of betrayal with potentially long-lasting consequences.
What?
It suggests a deeper, more personal connection between Favaro and the Idaho family that could have some serious repercussions.
Back to the present day and Bobby Bloom's gallery opening.
Okay.
This event becomes a surprisingly central location, bringing together many of the key players in our mystery.
It's a clever way to connect characters from different parts of the story,
Yeah.
They can interact, and important information can be revealed through conversations or even the artwork itself.
The gallery features paintings in the style of Higgins Idaho.
Interesting.
And there's a rumor that some of them might actually be originals by the artist himself.
Despite the scandal surrounding Higgins Idaho, his work still holds a certain power and intrigue. It suggests that his legacy and maybe the secrets surrounding it still have a grip on the Hollywood community.
Detective Grist is at the opening and ends up talking with Arnie and Lonnie Bernardo.
Okay.
Lonnie casually mentions that Lizzie Short was getting pretty cozy with the psychiatrist John H. Idaho at Kratz's party.
That's a big piece of the puzzle.
Right.
Connecting Lizzie Short to Dr. Idaho just hours before her death raises questions about their interaction.
And then Arnie Bernardo drops a bomb. He mentions that Higgins Idaho had beat a murder rap,
Whoa.
bringing up that dark cloud over the grandfather's past.
Right.
And then he points out Lizzie Short's unusual name and how it connects to Elizabeth Short, the Black Dahlia.
That's a huge, ominous connection.
It is.
Bernardo is definitely trying to steer the investigation in a specific direction. The Black Dahlia reference is intentional. It makes you wonder if Lizzie Short chose that name on purpose.
Right.
It's like she's invoking that unsolved Hollywood mystery.
Bernardo even suggests that Grist should take a closer look at the paintings.
Yeah, Bernardo's been around Hollywood a long time. He knows how secrets can be hidden and how the past can show up in unexpected ways.
While this is happening, Grist spots Dime across the room at the bar. She's wearing a red dress. There's a moment of personal reflection, maybe some unspoken feelings, or even a bit of jealousy, adding another layer to their professional dynamic.
It's a reminder that they're human, with lives and emotions outside the investigation.
Right.
And it shows the high-stakes world they work in where those feelings can sometimes clash with their duties.
Dime and Grist do check out the paintings, and they realize that the one behind the bar is of Laura Mill.
Really?
Yeah, and it's
Wow.
dated 1947, right in the time frame of her life and death.
This is the concrete link connecting the present murder to the past.
Right.
It confirms Dime's intuition and moves the investigation forward.
Their investigation ramps up from here. They dig into Lizzie Short's background and uncover some shocking family connections.
With a link to Laura Mill confirmed, they can start tracing the family histories and relationships that bridge the decades between the two murders.
They find out that Lizzie Short's real name was Laura M. Sutton,
Okay.
and her grandmother was Laura Mill Sutton, the murdered actress. She wasn't just using a random alias, it was a direct link to her family's past.
This revelation gives us a possible motive. It suggests a deep connection to the past tragedy.
And it gets even more twisted. They learn that Lizzie Short's grandfather was Roman Lenny Favaro, the director who was most likely responsible for her grandmother's death.
Yeah.
She was the daughter of his illegitimate child.
So the victim in the present is directly related to the perpetrator of the past crime. It really shows how the past can cast a long shadow.
It's add even more intrigue. They discover that Favaro recently died in a retirement home. From what was reported as an accidental overdose, the timing of his death so close to Lizzie Short's murder is suspicious.
Yeah, an accidental overdose in this context seems too convenient to be true. Experienced investigators wouldn't just accept that at face value.
Lonnie Bernardo then remembers something important. She says that at Kratz's party, she thought it was John H. Idaho who was acting a little too friendly with Lizzie Short.
So that puts Dr. Idaho right there with Lizzie Short and suggests a more active, maybe even aggressive interest from him.
Right.
It shifts the focus of suspicion.
This leads the detectives to the Burbank Entertainment Retirement Home where Favaro lived.
Okay.
And let's just say they're not exactly subtle with the director. They really want answers.
Well, they're under pressure to solve this case. They probably figured a more direct approach would get results faster than being polite.
Yeah, and it works. They get Favaro's visitor logs, and Lizzie Short was his only visitor for the past year. She visited every month, and her last visit was the day he died.
So there was definitely a connection between Lizzie Short and her grandfather in the months leading up to his death. Her presence in his life was no coincidence.
Right.
It must be related to her grandmother's murder.
Grist and Dime conclude that Lizzie Short probably killed Favaro as revenge for her grandmother's murder. It fits the timeline and the family connections.
The revenge motive makes sense given the family history and Lizzie Short's visits to Favaro. It suggests a planned act of vengeance.
But then the story shifts to Dr. John H. Idaho and explores his motives through a flashback in his art studio. We see him painting his grandparents in a style that's very different from his grandfather's more controversial work, almost a nostalgic Norman Rockwell kind of vibe.
This difference in style is important. It suggests John H. might be trying to clean up his family's image,
Yeah.
to create a more acceptable narrative.
He then finds an old photo album and discovers a picture of his grandfather, his pregnant grandmother, and Roman Favaro.
Okay.
On the back it says, "Me, Mother, and the Bastards."
This is a huge clue.
Yeah, it implies an affair between Favaro and Idaho's grandmother.
And that Idaho's own father might be one of Favaro's illegitimate children.
Right.
This changes everything about their family dynamics.
Then Idaho finds his grandmother's diary, and inside is a note from Favaro arranging a meeting at the beach house, the same beach house where Laura Mill was murdered.
This confirms the affair and further intertwines the family's histories in a very personal way for Idaho.
Idaho now realizes the truth. Favaro had a relationship with his grandmother, and that's how his father was born.
This gives Dr. Idaho a strong personal motive. Favaro not only ruined his grandfather's life, but also shaped his own family's origins through this secret affair.
We then see the night of Lizzie Short's murder from John H. Idaho's point of view. He's drunk at Kratz's party, and he approaches Lizzie Short in Favaro's old bedroom.
That location is significant, It's as if the past is right there in the room with them, influencing what happens.
Idaho shows Short the photo of his grandparents and Favaro, along with the painting of Laura Mill.
He's revealing the shared history that connects them, maybe hoping for some acknowledgement or understanding about Favaro's actions.
They argue, and Idaho reveals what he knows about Favaro's past. Then he chases Short onto the beach with a letter opener he found in the bedroom.
Using a letter opener again. It's a disturbing echo of the past.
I know.
It's like Idaho is subconsciously reenacting the violence, or maybe even intentionally mirroring it, fueled by his anger and his need for justice.
Idaho murders Lizzie Short on the beach. He thinks he's ending the Savaro line and avenging his grandfather. His motivations are twisted by years of resentment and family secrets.
Idaho's consumed by a need for revenge that has distorted his reality. He thinks he's righting a wrong, completely unaware of the tragedy he's creating.
When interrogated, Idaho tries to deny everything, but eventually confesses to killing Lizzie Short. He even says he did the world a favor.
His confession shows how delusional he's become. He really believes he's a hero completely blind to the truth.
But then comes the final twist, revealed through DNA analysis.
Okay.
They find epithelial cells under Lizzie Short's fingernails from when she scratched Idaho during their fight.
Right.
And it turns out they were related.
This DNA evidence is tragic and ironic. It reveals a connection that Idaho had no idea about.
It turns out that Roman Lenny Favaro was the grandfather of both Lizzie Short and John H. Idaho.
Oh my God.
They were cousins. Idaho had no idea he killed his own relative.
This is a heartbreaking consequence of the secrets and the revenge he was so obsessed with.
The final scene shows Idaho in prison. He's found dead by suicide with a letter from his lawyer and the DNA report next to him.
Idaho's suicide is a tragic end. It shows the devastation caused by his actions and the guilt he must have felt after learning the truth. The DNA report becomes a symbol of his failure and the pointlessness of his revenge.
So in the end, John H. Idaho's obsession with revenge against Roman Lenny Favaro for what he did to his grandfather led him to murder Lizzie Short. And the irony is that they were family. They were cousins.
It highlights the unintended consequences of the past and how family secrets and resentment can resurface across generations with terrible results.
It makes you think about how many other hidden connections might be out there. How family history and anger can twist our perceptions and lead to such horrible outcomes.
It's a reminder of the lasting impact of family secrets, the darkness of Hollywood's past, and how destructive revenge can be. These themes stay with you long after the story is over.
They really do.